Okay, so can we start with your thoughts on how prevalent Apple devices are? I know in the consumer world we're pretty familiar with them all, but I'm thinking more obviously in the enterprise world. If they're gaining sort of impetus there, and also whether the pandemic accelerated take up of them or had any impact on that.
Yeah, every organization has Apple in them. They've treated them for a while as bring your own device, BYOD. We see that as being a lot of the Dropbox and other mentalities where they bring their personal devices in and that starts to bubble up. I always say that there's always Apple devices in the boardroom, and that proliferates it throughout. We did see a lot of acceleration with the pandemic. People working from home, they had a little bit more need to use what they wanted to use than being tied to their workstations that they have to use at organizations. So it's been fast proliferation in the ecosystem for sure.
And is it fair to say that up until now, the sort of rise of Apple devices in the enterprise has been somewhat, well, I don't know, haphazard, random, as you mentioned, sort of bring your own device, and perhaps critically, therefore, the sort of understanding of what devices in an organization and the sort of remote monitoring and management of that is also being somewhat less than perfect, should we put it like that?
Yeah, and there was always departments that seemed to get blessed by it, marketing, again, the C-suite, a lot of times engineering, or even the IT department. Ironically, most managed service providers I walk into, they use a lot of Apple devices internally, but of course their job is to manage Windows devices prevalently. So that haphazardness, as you call it, the BYOD, it's gone now. People know that they can't allow these devices to work within the security confines of the organization without it being managed. And frankly, the ecosystem didn't have tools out there to help them manage them as they expect with Windows devices until recently with tools like we've been building at Addigy.
Okay, so it's the time is right to move beyond remote monitoring and management solutions, sort of generalist solutions, and we need sort of Apple device management, a sort of professional approach to looking after all the devices in the enterprise. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, you look at the security posture all organizations need to have. You can have devices that are unmanaged, and you got to be able to provide the same experience, especially after the pandemic with COVID. And users, this is their only mode of productivity. They have to be able to sit down and focus their productivity for their organization, and that means giving them the tools that make them the most productive. It makes them competitive when people are coming out of college and schools and they're used to using Apple devices. You don't want to force them into other productivity tools that challenge that. And you got to, of course, be able to meet the security requirements that are necessary. So I think it's so important more than ever. And most organizations have adopted it in a really holistic fashion.
Okay, and in terms of Addigy's Apple device management approach, it covers, and I'm going to have to read this, forgive me, because it's quite a long list, but you have device enrollment, deployment, and management as sort of one strand. You then have inventory and visibility, and then monitoring and remediation. So would you be able to talk us through each of those sort of three pieces?
Yeah, and device enrollment, technically really is Apple's utility called Apple Business Manager, automated device enrollment. And what that means is anything you buy from Apple, when those devices get drop shipped to their location, when they come online, they're going to automatically connect to your management platform, Addigy or anything else like that, and make sure that you can fully provision the user for what they need. So again, during the pandemic, a lot of our customers, they were shipping Apple devices to their employees' homes. The moment they opened them up out of the box, out of the shrink wrap, it fully set up their entire environment for them, fully configured everything, all the software they needed without anybody touching it. And that's really critical. It also ensures that if they have a problem with a device, troubleshooting it only goes to a certain point before they wipe it and let it sort of set back up from scratch to the ideal state it needs to be in. Being able to monitor the inventory and visibility of those devices for everything from battery life issues that you might have under warranty that you can take care of, to just lost devices or malware issues. I mean, there's a lot more security threats than ever on Apple devices because of the quantity of devices out there. So lastly, that monitoring and remediation is really key to making sure that systems stay in compliance in force at all times. And that's what makes us unique, because MDM is just about configuring a device. We need to make sure those devices stay compliant at all times.
Okay, and a mention of compliance. I mean, cybersecurity is perhaps the hot topic across the whole of the IT space. And those of us, I mean, I'm in from the publishing background, and Apple technology has, long been our staple way of doing things. But we used to be sort of safe in the knowledge that nobody really bothered, attacking Apple devices because they were too busy, with PCs, Windows, and all that. But that is beginning to change, am I right? So the security aspect of managing Apple devices is becoming increasingly important.
Well, on my point of view, I think it's changing because of two reasons. Because there is a lot more volume out there, and when it comes to security threats from bad actors, usually volume is a big portion of that. How many devices can they touch and get and hack? And the other part is also the quality of information of those devices in a way. So, like, even the earliest days, I don't know if you recall, but Orbitz was actually charging people differently if they were searching on the website with a Mac versus a Windows device, because they thought there was a tolerance for just a higher income level, other areas like that. So I think it is actually the culmination of both. Those Apple device users very likely are highly talented people in the industry, or may have more information of higher value, as well as the sheer volume of devices out there. So the compliance is more than required. Apple's doing a great job of increasing the security posture of the device by itself, but you really need to make sure that you're managing across the organization and ensuring all Apple devices are meeting the top quality compliance requirements.
And what we've discussed so far lends itself to, I mean, the channel managed service providers have a great opportunity, because it sounds like it's a fairly new sort of area to manage. Well, Apple device has been around for a long time, but as we've discussed, that the need to manage them is becoming important now. So I say the channel MSPs have a great opportunity to develop some kind of Apple device management service, which they can then obviously offer out to their customers.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge opportunity. We have a lot of MSPs that focus only on Apple, because the profitability within them, you don't have different hardware builds out there. They're monolithic hardware and software, so you have a little bit better expectations of how it's going to perform. With the right tools, you have really efficient use and scale of those platforms, and the end customers themselves that have invested in predominantly Apple devices, they're going to have a higher level of investment in IT, and they're going to have a higher level of need and requirements. So what it does is it creates a premium offering. Most of our Mac-oriented MSPs do provide much more profitable service offerings than they typically do on the Windows side, and they're not competing on price to get these deals with new customers. They're not competing against 4 or 5 quotes. It differentiates them overall, and they really provide a great quality service.
Okay, I mean, are you able to share 1 or 2 examples, whether you can name them or not, of where you have worked alongside an MSP to develop an Apple device service?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few of them that focus strictly on that in our market, Connect Technologies. A few others I'll give you some names for as well too. Valiant Technologies in New York. And they've really grown their Apple practice to a very, very large extent. And that really gives them this opportunity to service whomever they want. I had a call with a customer yesterday where they won a deal, school with 150 Apple devices from an MSP that basically said, look, we want you to use Windows devices. If you won't, we really don't want to support you. And that's not a very great experience for the customer, who's obviously already invested in this and wants to have the best experience possible. So and also in our growth side of things, I predominantly used to work in the industry. I was at Kaseya for 8 years, as well as a lot of the people at our organization from Kaseya, ConnectWise, others, we see higher growth rates with our MSPs that adopt Addigy and grow with our platform, just because I think there's just a lot more opportunity than people think. They disqualify deals that are Apple out of the gate because they're just not confident that they're there. So even if they think that there's not a lot of opportunity, if they really look back on their conversations or where things are at, there was probably a lot of opportunity they pushed away without knowing it.
Okay, in terms of sort of looking to the future, I mean, the last 18 months, I guess, has taught us of one thing, perhaps that we shouldn't be too sort of presumptive as to what's around the corner. But set against that, I mean, how far do you see that Apple technology can get into, become more mainstream in the workplace, and therefore, I guess, just how much more management of those devices there, and to our channel folks, more opportunity there will be in the future?
Yeah, I'm obviously a little biased. I mean, I'm not an Apple fanboy to a large extent. I was PC and Linux as well through my engineering and research work. But the point is, what Apple's done recently to the new chipsets that they have, the Apple M1, it's creating a completely different capability for users. The battery life is exponentially longer, better performance, and now they're able to take the same things they do with their phones and their tablets, of these vertical technologies, and start building things in that we haven't seen in a general purpose laptop or computer. So we're really expecting to see a lot of change there. We're seeing some of the largest organizations like Ernst & Young and others, they're huge predominant Microsoft shops, making some pretty big changes to Apple because of the privacy, the higher levels of security built into that hardware stack. And just the performance and the usability for the end users. I think there's just been another gear that Apple has done the last year. It's only been about 4 or 5 years ago that they had a line of the Mac products that hadn't had a hardware refresh in 4 years. They've been putting a lot of money, time, and focus into the Macs. And we're not changing. I think there was always a notion that mobile was going to take over the workspace. But we're all slow to change. We're going to be using our Mac at our desks, at our workplace, for our main productivity tools, and it's just been. I think we're going to see huge proliferation in the market, massive.
Okay, we covered a bit of ground there, but are there any sort of final 1 or 2 thoughts or advice to? I mean, maybe the channel folks, obviously, but also, I mean, there may be some end users watch this as well, as to things they should be switched on to when it comes to the opportunity with Apple technology.
Yeah, I think for both, we'll talk about the end user first. Having the best experience when you pull the device out of the shrink wrap and you have your work environment ready to go, all your configurations, software, security access, Wi-Fi, everything available from the moment it comes out of the box. It's really important. And having a provider that can help do that. So, unfortunately, we're kind of in a secondary wave here in the US. Things are starting to change with the Delta variant. And we were in this a little over a year ago, and having the tools to be able to support the users the best way possible, it just creates the best experience. Because at the end of the day, even though Addigy sells technology, it's all about making the end users happy. If they're happy and they're getting the best that they can out of their technology, then we're all doing the right thing, and the whole supply chain is working well. So that's keeping those users first, providing the best experience for them. We're here to help any MSPs and channel providers that really want to provide a bit of a focus in that market. It's very profitable. There's very few ways, I think, in the MSP space that you can grow that top line revenue without looking at a segment like this that can really move things along faster for you.
Excellent. Well, it's been great to chat. So, Jason, thanks very much indeed for your time. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.